Several years ago, when we were getting ready to launch Bridgeford and doing the research around which trust jurisdiction would be the best for us to obtain a trust charter, we became very, very passionate about comparing the top tier trust jurisdictions. And as most people know in the industry, there's really four that are considered top tier: South Dakota, Delaware, Nevada, and Alaska. And as we were doing our research, we realized that as we were deciding which jurisdiction to select to get our charter, that the devil really was in the details. And in fact, each jurisdiction, while they say that they are the top jurisdiction, the reality is there's only really one jurisdiction that has particular planning nuances that really makes it stand out from the rest. And we made that determination several years ago that it was South Dakota. And then a few years after obtaining our charter, we were asked to present as part of a jurisdiction showdown. And the idea of this jurisdiction showdown was a panel discussion in California that had Nevada, Alaska, South Dakota, and Delaware represented. And of course, we represented South Dakota. And it was at that time that we as a team really took the focus and time and energy to build a presentation that really kind of transcended an argument and transcended subjectivity and really kind of analyzed nuances in trust law that really made South Dakota stand out. And what we found was that there are in fact at least four areas of trust planning that only can be done in South Dakota, or areas where South Dakota clearly ascends. And so we prepared a chart, which you'll see on the screen here. And we're very proud of the chart, which is updated very frequently. And our focus is on objective information provided by Steve Oceans. Many of you are familiar with his charts, I'm sure. Trust and Estates magazine, law review articles, and really objective sources rather than just Bridgeford's opinion. Because the idea here is to have objective information not only about comparing trust jurisdictions, but also about education generally in terms of trust planning. And what we found is objectively there were four areas, as I mentioned before, where South Dakota really exceeded or transcended the other trust jurisdictions. So one is in the area of dynasty trusts. And as the chart points out, and there's a footnote there that you can see, consistently Steve Oceans, for a myriad of reasons, has determined that South Dakota is the strongest trust jurisdiction, dynasty trust jurisdiction in the country. And it isn't just by a slim margin, it's by a pretty substantial it leads pretty substantially, and again for a myriad of reasons that you can see on Steve Ocean's chart. And then you transition to areas like decanting, which is an extremely important modern trust law. And again, Steve Ocean's Trust and Estates magazine, they look to South Dakota and they determine, because of an objective comparison that they have done, that South Dakota is the strongest jurisdiction in that area too, again for the 6th or 7th year in a row. And then you look at other areas of South Dakota law that just don't exist in other jurisdictions like Nevada or Alaska or Delaware. Concepts like the trust advisor, which is really a trust protector light position, a non-fiduciary position that only exists in South Dakota and has been a strong reason as to why South Dakota has been selected, quite frankly, over Nevada. Because generally it seems that recently Nevada and South Dakota are more recently compared in terms of which jurisdiction is the strongest. But by far, which is really the most dramatic differentiator for South Dakota as compared to the other three jurisdictions, is in the area of privacy. South Dakota has been acknowledged by Trust and Estates magazine for many years. Practitioners, Steve Oceans, practitioners all over the world, in fact, as having the strongest privacy provisions in the country. Now, not secrecy, which is a very different concept, but privacy. And there are two main areas around privacy that we're able to bring to the planning process. An idea called a quiet trust, and the idea of protecting and sealing information from the public should the trust be part of litigation. Another nuance is in the area of the community property trust, which is a very new concept for South Dakota, and frankly a little known planning nuance around the country. Only South Dakota and Alaska have a statute that allows for essentially 100% step up at the first to die in a community property trust. You don't have to live in a community property state to take advantage of that opportunity. Another area that's actually not represented in the chart is the insurance premium tax. which is also somewhat of a myopic topic, but vitally important in the discussion relative to private placement life insurance. And essentially what that is a tax that's embedded in the sale of life insurance. And most states are in the area of around 200 basis points or 250 basis points, including Delaware. Recently, Delaware has talked a lot about how they have the ability to reduce the premium tax completely. But in fact, again, the devil's in the details there, and you have to look very carefully at what Delaware law says. If the insurance policy itself is held inside of an LLC, which quite frankly is usually the case and it's prudent planning, then in fact, under Delaware law, the premium tax is 200 basis points or more, unlike South Dakota, which is 8 basis points. So the purpose of the chart is to be an objective analysis, not the opinion of Bridgeford Trust Company or even the opinion of David Warren, but to be a representation of the opinions of people, quite frankly, a lot smarter than us in the marketplace who've come to the conclusion that for several reasons, South Dakota really does ascend to a place as being the leading trust jurisdiction in the United States. And it's important as you look at the chart and do the comparison to pay attention to the details and the nuances, because that will make all the difference in trust planning. For more information about all the topics that we talked about and that I've mentioned, please go to our website. There are videos and blog posts and white papers on all the concepts. Or of course, feel free to contact us directly. And we look forward to working with you in the future.